Hello guys and welcome back to Cryptic Humility. My name is Vanessa Hurley. I am your host and guide. We are on episode 17 this week, potentially going to be one of the most important episodes that we've covered to date. Before anybody asks, I know it's very bold of me to be wearing a tank top, knowing that I am so badly sunburnt. This past week, we started the community garden setup. If you're new here, I also run a nonprofit where we maintain a community garden, and in that process, all the produce that we grow and collect gets donated to local food banks across the North Shore area of Massachusetts. Yesterday, it was 80 degrees, and it was the first hot day pretty much of the spring, so none of us were prepared, but it was wonderful. If you want to talk about divine timing, all my good friends and people in the community came out to help us set up. I will link BFED Foundation's website and our username can't talk for TikTok and LinkedIn and everywhere that we're located on social media, so you guys can kind of follow along our journey to see how a community garden runs and the process of it. But it was just so perfect. After the community garden, it rained for about an hour. It's going to be raining all week, so we don't necessarily have to worry about maintenance just yet, and we're so excited to see how much we collect this year. We're growing a huge variety this year. Of course, I don't want to talk about this too long. I want to talk about our topic today for crypto, but eventually we're trying to build the business to the point that we can start donating some of the proceeds that we get from the business to the nonprofit as well, and kind of this project could support that one as well. Potentially one of the most important podcast episodes. Why is that, Vanessa? Why would this be important? Well, because the entire purpose of the podcast is to talk about pyramid schemes, fraud, get-rich-quick schemes, and all the corruption that happens in the crypto, fintech markets and industries, and why they're not excelling the way that they could. What are the initial issues that are blocking us from having a world that's more crypto and fintech centric? Well, something happened to me senior year of college that I can't believe I haven't addressed yet on this podcast episode. Obviously, we've heard my scammer story about freshman year of college when I got into AI trading for the FX market, totally new to the markets, had no idea what was going on. Some influencer from Hawaii hit me up. That's all you really need to hear to know how bad this story went. I lost $2,000. It was a mess. But senior year, I can't believe this slipped my mind. I never told you guys this story that we need to talk about, but the reason why we're talking about it today is because in this episode, we're going to be discussing Bitcoin ATMs. Also, we're going to be covering Bitcoin or crypto IRAs for anybody that's interested in learning more about that. And then we will end this with discussing a second layer of Bitcoin that has come out a long time ago, but is a good reference because over the podcast, we've been talking about the issues and the glitches with Bitcoin in regards to like glitches of being able to scale. So this second layer that we're going to talk about today is actually trying to improve Bitcoin's network in several different ways. So we will touch upon that as current news because I think it is relevant in our debates of which crypto coin has the long-lasting value, which was actually one of our polls this week on LinkedIn. So enough of the rambling, let's get into it. We got a lot to cover, but first let's go into what Bitcoin ATMs actually are. Potentially the final boss of crypto scams will be the Bitcoin ATM. Now, there is an opportunity to change my mind on this, and we can talk after we go through all the facts, but there are about 40,000 Bitcoin ATMs currently around the United States. A Bitcoin ATM is not like a traditional ATM, and I think this is very important because a lot of people don't grasp the legitimacy or the function, if you will, of the Bitcoin ATM. Like, is it an actual traditional ATM? And the answer is no. A Bitcoin ATM is an opportunity to buy or transfer your crypto from your wallet to somebody else's or potentially purchase more crypto. How Bitcoin ATMs function is they're more like a kiosk that connects to the internet, and what you can do is you can get a QR code for your digital wallet and with your private key, etc. And you can scan that code, it would set up on the kiosk, and then you would be able to either buy or transfer the crypto that you currently have or the crypto that you want to receive or purchase. In order to buy crypto, you would insert cash into the machine. I'm sure they probably have credit and debit card options too at this point, but just for us to get the grasp of why this is kind of sort of called an ATM, you would insert your cash and then you'd be able to select which cryptocurrencies you'd like to buy. And of course, like I said, if you scan the QR code with your wallet that has all of your crypto and your proof, your ownership of those funds, you can actually do transfers to through the kiosk or through the Bitcoin ATM. This has nothing to do with your bank account compared to a traditional ATM where you might deposit your cash, insert your credit or debit card, which would connect to your bank account, type in your PIN, and then, you can withdraw cash or make a deposit. It's not the same. You can deposit money into a Bitcoin ATM in order to purchase more cryptocurrencies. And also, the Bitcoin ATM has nothing to do with your personal bank account and everything to do with your digital wallet. And obviously, of course, your bank account could be hooked up to your digital wallet, but that's a whole different conversation. It is nothing like the bank and everything like your crypto essentials. The reason why the kiosk needs to be connected to the internet is because it can also connect to the Bitcoin blockchain, for example. So if you went on, you inserted cash, you went to buy Bitcoin, that transaction can be recorded on Bitcoin's blockchain, and hence in 40,000 different locations in the United States can you purchase crypto and the transaction be recorded on the blockchain. CoinFlip is one of the Bitcoin ATM providers. They're one of the companies or the manufacturers that actually use and operate Bitcoin ATMs. The one downside of this, and we can compare PayPal all the time on this podcast, but PayPal, when you go to send money or you want to purchase something, for example, just to give an example, the fees are like maybe $1, $2 to like the $5 range, depending on how much money you're sending. If you're sending a ton of money, obviously the fees can be a lot higher. But the Bitcoin ATMs go off percentages. So sometimes they could be anywhere from 4 to 5% to like 20% of the Bitcoin that you're trying to buy, just to process that transaction. So the Bitcoin ATM transaction fees can be absolutely crazy. And we can also debate the legitimacy of Bitcoin ATMs. Why would we have this quest to go out and, I guess in a way, it's kind of like Cash App and Venmo, where if you need to transfer money to somebody, you can just go on your phone. And it's a little bit harder. I mean, you can do that with Bitcoin too. This is like my debate, and maybe we can talk about it in the comments together, but my debate is the actual need for Bitcoin ATMs. What is the actual need for Bitcoin ATMs to go to a kiosk to be able to transfer money when you can essentially just do that on your phone? So I'm curious because obviously, like, I have Coinbase on my phone. If I needed to transact or send anybody money, I have my wallet on my phone as well. Like, I could just do that. So I don't necessarily know what the exact demand is for Bitcoin ATMs, but I think they're just a really cool futuristic concept that a lot of people get stuck on and aren't truly aware of the exact function. So they might get lost in the hype, if you will. But today we're going to seek to diminish all the hype. So to recap on everything we said, the Bitcoin ATMs are just to buy or transfer your crypto funds if you need to send somebody money from your wallet to somebody else's, or if you're looking to buy crypto, you can insert cash. But it's not like an ATM. It's not connected to your bank account. It's connected to your digital wallet. Has nothing to do with your savings, your checkings. So it's all about basically like, if you needed to use Coinbase, but you were out in public and decided that you needed to do a transfer, kind of like how you would with Cash App. But again, we have our phones, so it's kind of a wishy-washy debate there. But this is the reason why I'm bringing Bitcoin ATMs up today. Because at Bryant University, I got an email at my school student email. And of course, when you're a student and your university is sending you emails, you don't really necessarily think that they're scam or fraud. You more so think, oh, this came through my school, it came through the university, maybe it is somewhat legit if they're allowing recruiters to recruit for potential jobs through our email. So, of course, that was my thought process. I soon realized that, so this person reached out to me for like Bitcoin ATM surveys and to do something with the current Bitcoin ATMs in the area. They ended up sending me a check and obviously asking me to deposit it. We all know where this is going. They wanted me to deposit the check, the fraudulent check, to see if it would go through with my bank account. So then, if it was successful and they knew that that method was foolproof, my assumption was that they were trying to get me to insert fake money into Bitcoin ATMs in order for them to purchase more crypto themselves. How they can do this is that they can send me the QR code to their digital wallet. So when I go to scan the QR code that connects to their digital wallet, and then the fake or fraudulent check that I cashed, for example, the bank gave me cash for it, it was foolproof, and I go to insert that into the Bitcoin ATM with their digital wallet, then I am able in that moment to send this fraudulent person that I work for money. Now, it never scaled to this, so thank God, it never scaled to this. But I tried to deposit one of the checks because this was before I worked at the bank. Like, this is way, way, way before any of this wisdom accumulated with myself. But realized it was an entire scam. The bank called me. I had to discuss it with them. I was like, yeah, I'm just a college student. I don't know what happened. Like, obviously, this check is fraudulent. I've never even worked for them. Like, I haven't even been hired yet. It was just like, whoa, like, this is crazy. I seriously can't believe that I haven't brought this up on the podcast yet, but truly, it was just like, it all happened so fast. I kind of forgot that this happened, but it's such a huge thing. The Bitcoin ATM scams and schemes are relevant and worth addressing and talking about, and a lot of people don't understand that they'll send you a QR code, have you scan the QR code and everything I said with the fraudulent checks and stuff. So anyways, what's crazy about this story is that my bank actually like basically expels me from banking. And this was when which bank was this? I banked at People's United Bank. I don't even, it's now M&T. It's a small community bank, I'm pretty sure, but they were like, we can't service you anymore because you're like involved in crypto schemes. And I'm like, I'm a victim of this crypto scheme, and I'm trying to raise awareness about that to you guys. But whatever. So it is a true issue worth discussing, the Bitcoin ATM schemes. And while Bitcoin ATMs can be cool, again, we're struggling to find true purpose, true demand in them. If we didn't have a cell phone, I'd say absolutely that's a really cool invention. But since we can do transfers on our phone seamlessly anywhere, it's kind of interesting to see the Bitcoin kiosks and how urgent it is to buy crypto in a moment. It's always urgent to take out cash, for example, or it's always urgent to check your balance on the ATM or do it, whatever you need to do. Like that managing your money, I understand, but managing your portfolio as intensely, like your Bitcoin or your crypto portfolio as a whole, not really sure how much in demand that really is. I'm going to be reading a statistic for you guys really quickly. It says all Bitcoin ATM operators in the United States must register with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, and comply with anti-money laundering provisions of the Bank Secrecy Act. Which is crazy. So every single Bitcoin ATM or every single manufacturer or provider of Bitcoin ATMs has to abide by these rules. So it's so amazing to me that they abide by these rules, and then we're experiencing so many Bitcoin ATM scams, fraud schemes. I mean, I experienced it at my university. I'm sure so many people have experienced it. And by the way, if you have experienced Bitcoin ATM scams, fraud schemes, anything, we do a segment on this podcast, which is new, and we're still kind of waiting for somebody to take a leap on it. But we do a segment that's called Cryptic Idiots. And if you are a cryptic idiot, meaning that you've been scammed, you've been fooled, or you've been involved in some sort of sus activity by accident and you're a victim, we want to hear your story. You can email cryptic.humility@gmail.com, and we will post a 1-minute clip of you or 2-minute clip of you on the podcast explaining what your story was. So you could send us a video really quickly, talk about your experience, and you could potentially get shown on the podcast. And in hopes to spread more awareness about all these things that happen. But it's just so funny how things align in your life because, if I never got scammed freshman year of college, I would never have started my whole quest in crypto, and then doing the directed study senior year and fully diving into crypto, and then the Bitcoin ATM scheme happening, and then just all the years that I worked at the bank, 2 years that I worked at the bank. I said all the years, I worked there for 2 years. But it's just all these things align you to your greater purpose, and you can always hear God in your life's work and how things just slowly align you to your purpose and where you're supposed to go. And not to get like off topic with you guys, but truly I've felt for the longest time that I am meant to teach about fintech and crypto, and these certain things happened on my path because there is a true issue in the Bitcoin, crypto, blockchain, fintech worlds where we're experiencing fraud because there's such a heightened need for cybersecurity. And we're moving all of our finances online, and we're trying to give blockchain a chance, we're trying to give crypto a chance, and of course we're falling short in some ways because, and I was actually just talking to our next guest speaker who is going to be coming on to the show very shortly. Very excited for you guys to meet her. But we were just talking about the need for regulation in crypto and the need for more awareness about these topics that we're hoping to shine light on, like Bitcoin ATMs and more things that we're going to be talking about either next week or the week after. We'll have her on. So we're very excited. But this is a true issue that needs to be discussed, and we need to figure out how can we have crypto, Bitcoin ATMs? How can we excel this technology, but also shut it out from outsiders with malicious intent? Because I do think that crypto and Bitcoin specifically have the potential to completely change our world. And actually, in the last episode, we were talking about how Bitcoin has a lot of difficulties in regards to its transaction times, its transaction speeds, what we can do to help Bitcoin become just as good as Ethereum or Solana in regards to dApps in the interface and the payment processing. So we were actually supposed to talk about this later in the podcast, but I really want to touch upon it now because I feel like it is relevant to dive into as we're talking about Bitcoin ATMs. But in the last couple episodes, we've been discussing Ethereum, Solana, Cardano. We've been talking about all their transaction speeds, what they offer, and kind of comparing all of them. Bitcoin, in that we were talking about how their payment processing speeds are not as fast compared to Solana. We were talking about how Visa is a company, the credit card company that I'm sure everybody knows, but they are trying to adopt Solana's blockchain or their smart contracts for their payment processing because it's so much faster and so much more scalable for Visa. Eventually, Solana is going to have 800,000 transactions per second to process. Visa can only process 65,000 right now. So that is a big scalability opportunity for Visa in recruiting more customers if they use Solana's blockchain. Why I'm saying that is because there has been issues with Bitcoin and scalability. We've seen Ether and Ethereum be able to scale with the dApps and the interface and the lending and all the virtual worlds and stuff like that, and even Solana. But Bitcoin, because of Bitcoin mining and its energy usage and its slow processing time, we have only really been able to see Bitcoin as a digital gold because of its scarce fixed supply and because it's kind of like a repellent to inflation. Actually, in one of the polls this week that I posted on LinkedIn, which the polls are always nice. If you're listening, feel free to jump into them and join the conversation. We try to talk every single week on LinkedIn and create dialogue around crypto. But I was going back and forth in debates with somebody about which coin do we think is going to be worthwhile in the long term in regards to Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. And a lot of people were talking about Bitcoin, and somebody specifically was going back and forth with me because, and I forgot to mention, but we never talked about Rootstock in that former podcast episode, which is the second layer that kind of complements Bitcoin's blockchain. Rootstock is trying to take all the limitations of Bitcoin, like I just mentioned, slow payment processing, long periods to confirm blocks, and just the lack of scalability that Bitcoin has because of Bitcoin mining and its energy use. Rootstock is a second layer to Bitcoin that is trying to enhance its current and first chain. Now, this is not new, but this is very relevant. This was created in 2015, and it basically works as an interface for people to create smart contracts and the development of dApps. So, how this works is both chains are working hand in hand to do different tasks. So Bitcoin's primarily primary chain might be focused more on confirming a block or confirming a transaction and using Bitcoin mining. And because of that, it can take some time. In the meantime, Bitcoin's second layer is doing behind the scenes work like creating smart contracts, for example, to help facilitate the process of trades and transfers and confirmations faster on Bitcoin's blockchain. And in return, that will reduce fees, will reduce costs, it will hopefully in some way speed up transactional times and kind of it's basically just Bitcoin's blockchain's sidekick, if you will. It is its side chain that allows for better improvement on Bitcoin's blockchain. Bitcoin's blockchain just needs help pretty much in regards to being able to create an interface of things, and that is what Rootstock is. And Rootstock is not a crypto coin. It's not a cryptocurrency. It is just a sub layer of Bitcoin's blockchain. It is a sub chain, like I said, that allows for transactions to be processed quicker because it's basically two chains talking to each other in order to help each other move faster. The whole issue with Bitcoin is network congestion. And when we talk about network congestion, we're talking about how because it takes Bitcoin so long to confirm transactions, typically it can cause a lot of congestion on the chain, a lot of blockages on the chain, that and honestly more stagnancy in regards to the constant flow and liquidity on Bitcoin's blockchain. Rootstock validates blocks and then communicates with Bitcoin's primary chain to make sure that they're both in alignment and that they are both working together as a team to produce faster. I thought Rootstock would be really important to mention today because it is interesting how Bitcoin operates compared to a couple other blockchains that we have talked about too. But Bitcoin is really trying to scale to stay in its first mover's advantage position. And I think that it will. After this debate with who I talked to on LinkedIn, it was very fascinating to me, kind of because let me say that I always think that Ethereum and Solana could potentially become more like digital cash. And I think that their interface is already 10 times more scalable than Bitcoin, their payment processing. But we were talking about how there are weaknesses, like just as much as there's weaknesses in Bitcoin mining, which is the consensus mechanism and how we confirm transactions while remaining decentralized. We also can run into the same issues with proof of stake and validators. And we've talked about that so much on the show. We've talked about centralization and all those different issues that we faced in proof of stake consensus mechanism, which I don't want to talk about for too long today. But I want you guys to look into the podcast and learn more about that because it is true. There are no guarantees in those consensus mechanisms as well. But because people are already knowing that Bitcoin kind of takes a long time to process transactions, that might lead consumers or users, customers, if you will, to venture off into places like Solana or Ethereum. And we're already seeing huge companies like Visa do that. All right, let's close out this episode by talking about Bitcoin or crypto IRAs. Now, this is relevant in current news that I think we should touch upon because the main purpose of this podcast is to teach beginners about the crypto market, the FX market, the fintech industry, and also here and there a little bit about stocks. Now, and also just traditional things that you should know in finance. So I don't want to limit us just to crypto, even though we're on a mission to save the crypto galaxy. One podcast episode at a time. We are trying to teach people about finance in the easiest way possible with a little bit of humility, which is cryptic humility. So I want to talk about traditional IRAs versus Roth IRAs in a very simple sense. So as you're looking towards your future and you're looking towards retirement, 65 to 70 years old or whatever it may be, you might look into retirement accounts. And retirement accounts are accounts that you can max out each year. I think it's around $6,500 to $7,000, depending. And if you put that amount of money into either your traditional IRA or your Roth IRA, and we'll explain the differences between those. But if you are looking to put money in every single year and cap it every single year, that money can get invested into certain stocks, bonds, mutual funds, crypto, which we're going to talk about today, etc. The difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA for beginners, which is just very simple to explain, is that when you reach that point of retirement where you have maxed this IRA every single year up until retirement and you're looking to withdraw that money, your traditional IRA, you will, after, when you pull from the account, you'll have to pay taxes. The Roth IRA is tax free. So when you get to that point of retirement and you're looking forward to that money that you invested all these years and you pull from it, you will not have to pay traditional taxes on it like you would for a traditional IRA. So I have a Roth IRA that I set up that I max out every year that I work with my financial advisor on, and we just discussed, what actually I probably should talk to him pretty soon about adding crypto to it, but recently you've been able to start doing crypto IRAs, and what that means is that whether you have a traditional IRA or you have a Roth IRA, oh my God. IRA, you can put crypto into the portfolio. So you can dabble into crypto investments in your IRA, along with some of the traditional stuff like we just mentioned. To read you guys some facts, I looked into Fidelity and what Fidelity offers for retirement accounts, especially in crypto, and they allow you now to add and invest Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin into your crypto IRA. Bitcoin and Ethereum, completely understand why Fidelity is pretty narrow cut on just those two, because personally, I think those are the best two blockchains that have the biggest future is Bitcoin and Ethereum. What's good to know, just simple facts about this, and of course, I would recommend you talk to a financial advisor, you talk to a wealth management person that can help you set up your portfolio for your IRA and get you talking about these ideas and how you should max it out and what the best methods are for you. You can touch upon crypto with them. Highly recommend you talk to somebody about this. Even though you can open your own a Roth IRA or traditional IRA. In this case, I always think it's good to talk to somebody about your finances and somebody that can better guide you. But something that's important to mention is you can't just purchase all this crypto and then transfer it into an IRA. You would have to start with a firm and slowly make your way towards those investments, because obviously there's a max that you can enter into it every single year. The couple downsides of doing a crypto IRA, which we need to discuss so we can help you protect your future, is that there are a lot of fees that come with crypto, like specifically investing into it or having it in your IRA or having somebody invest it for you. Whatever it is, the crypto fees are usually a lot higher. And the problem is volatility. Now, do I think that you should put all your trust into a crypto IRA? Absolutely not. I think that you should have your traditional, if you have a Roth IRA, whatever your advisor traditionally would invest in, or whatever you decide with your advisor to traditionally invest in over the years, maybe with a little bit of crypto. Because crypto has volatility and a lot of the cryptocurrencies are only backed by supply and demand. So, and even I know Bitcoin now is in the crypto reserve, so it's a little bit safer now because the government is starting to look into it and to regulate it and all that stuff. For the cryptocurrencies that are backed just on supply and demand, there's no guarantee that down the road your investment is going to be worthwhile compared to investing in assets like tangible assets or businesses, for example, that have proof of worth. That's the problem, is that Bitcoin does have proof of worth at this point, and we can see it as a digital gold. But in time, in regards to scalability in your portfolio, because there's such an it can what's the word? There can be such intense swings in regards to the pricing of Bitcoin or the pricing of certain cryptocurrencies based off supply and demand. There is no guarantee that Bitcoin can help you achieve long-lasting wealth for your retirement. So I think it's definitely good if you've been maxing out your IRA for a couple years and now you want to dabble a little bit into the crypto space and you have the money to do so, 1000%. But I wouldn't totally jump into it without understanding that it's a lot more risky, especially for your retirement, than like a just traditional stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and typical things that your IRA money would be invested into. My thoughts on this are that I approve of Bitcoin IRAs or crypto IRAs. I think that they absolutely are worth investing into to a certain extent. Obviously, be wise about it. Don't fully trust just your crypto IRA. Obviously, talk to somebody, make sure that you're educated about the market, make sure you're educated about crypto and the supply and demand and the faults of that. We talk about it all the time on the show, so you guys can definitely tune in and listen and we will guide you correctly. But it could be something potentially interesting to look into. I know, as I said, that Fidelity is involved into it, so you can check out kind of what Fidelity's doing as a head start, but I'm sure there are a ton of other companies too that are investing in crypto IRAs. Other than that, that is everything that I wanted to cover on this podcast episode. So we talked about Bitcoin ATMs and what they actually are. We talked about crypto IRAs and how you could potentially get involved with them and the functionality of them. And if you're totally new, what IRAs are. And by the way, if you are 22, 23, 24, even 25 years old, right now is the time to start your IRA. You can go on Vanguard. Again, you can look into Fidelity, or if you like, my family has a financial advisor they've worked with over the generations, and I just talk to him occasionally about what I want to do to secure my future. But no stress, no pressure, but now is the perfect time to start thinking about retirement and maxing out that account. So in time, and I'm sure you might have even heard this, but in time, your account can be well over $1 million. Now, hopefully, the economy will be doing well when we retire, so $1 million will be worth our while. But as you know, $1 million back in the day may not be $1 million 30 years from now. So it's like it's a good cushion, but obviously there is no guarantee in that either. So you should always invest like your 401k, your IRA, spread your money far. Not that I'm a financial advisor, but like these would be my suggestions to you and to look into these topics. And of course, if somebody is talking to you about Bitcoin ATMs and they're giving you this QR code, they're telling you to go, do not do it. And look into it yourself, the legitimacy of Bitcoin ATMs. Sometimes this podcast isn't to give you all the answers, but it's for us to ponder together what those answers are and starting that conversation. And is there a true demand for the Bitcoin ATMs out there? What do you think? Do you think that Bitcoin ATMs should exist? Do you think that they should evolve to better? Do you think something needs to be added to them? Let me know. Let's start talking about these ideas and getting them addressed so we can have a more futuristic future. And that is all that I am about, is more futurism in our world, but only for the better. Thank you guys so much for listening. Of course, you can always leave a comment down below on Spotify. If there's anything that I wanted to add, it's usually in the video, like we'll fact check or we'll add certain key factors if I'm talking about something that I think is relevant and important. Also, additionally, for you to know. And like I said, we're going to be having our next guest speaker coming on shortly. We actually have another guest speaker after that too, so stay tuned. We're going to be talking to a lot of people, and I am going to be talking as you guys getting those questions answered that you want to know. So please ask away, and we will hear from some very credible professional people on their take of the biggest issues in the market. One of those things being Bitcoin ATMs. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have a great week. Again, any questions, let me know, and we will talk next Monday on Cryptic Humility. Thank you.